Hi, welcome to Overthinking Entrepreneur. I'm Megan, and I've had a successful online business for a few years now, and I think I overthought probably about 90% of my decisions along the way. Honestly, I just overthought whether I should say 90% or pretty much every decision in this intro. So if you find that relatable, you are definitely in the right place. In this podcast, I will help you get out of overthinking and into action so that your online business can finally start growing. This week, we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite analogies, which is why farming is like business. I have done absolutely no research about farming. I know a little. I grew up in small town Ohio. You get exposed to some farming, but I have never lived on a farm, worked on a farm. So please forgive me if you were knowledgeable about farms and I'm completely butchering any terminology or any part of the process. Just bear with me, okay? And just get out of this what we're hoping that you'll get out of this, because I think it's one of the best ways I have ever heard to explain what is the single biggest problem in most businesses that I encounter, online businesses. And that is that you always have to be planting seeds with new people. And many people let their business kind of come and go in these cycles, or they're missing part of this process and then getting frustrated when they're ready to harvest and there's nothing to be harvested. So let me back up and go through this. But essentially what I'm referring to is kind of those cycles where maybe you feel like you have a lot of people who are buying right now and everything's great and you have a lot of people who are interested, and then it feels like there's nothing for a long time. And it feels very unpredictable and very out of your control. And I'm hoping that as you listen to me kind of explain this analogy, that it will start to click for you what that missing piece probably is in your business. And like I said, I'm not diagnosing your business without actually talking to you, but the majority of people, this is often what's going on, or this would be a solution to a lot of the other problems. Like, I'm not saying that there aren't other things that you can work on, but the lack of consistent seed planting is what's going on a lot of times with your business if you feel like you just can't seem to get it into consistent momentum. So, okay, let's go over briefly how farming works, right? So if you want, at the end of the season, you want to have a nice harvest of corn. Let's go with corn. I live in Ohio, so it's cornfields everywhere. So let's go with corn, although I know nothing about how corn grows, and that's fine. I'm not trying to be accurate here. I'm just trying to use this to help you understand how it applies to your business. So if you are hoping to have a nice harvest of corn at the end of the season, what's the first thing that you have to do? You have to plant some seeds, right? You have to plant the corn seeds. If the corn seeds do not get into the ground, you are not going to have any corn ready to harvest at the end of the season. So planting the seed is equivalent to exposing a new person to your business and planting that little kernel of interest with them into their brain. So this is involving meeting new people and exposing them to your business. And I always feel weird when I say exposing. I always picture like a guy in a trench coat, like, here's my business, woo, flashed it, right? Like, that's not what we're doing. But anyway, finding those new people, consistently showing new people what it is that you sell, what you have to offer, why it's awesome and why they should want it, that is what is basically planting a seed. So if a farmer starts out at the beginning of a season and plants, let's say they plant a variety of crops. They're going to go through and they're going to plant their corn and their beans and their tomatoes and whatever else they're planting, right? Are they all going to be ready at the exact same time? No, they are not. Some have a shorter life cycle and they'll be ready in maybe just a few weeks. Some, you guys, I have to just confess to you, okay? A little side note here. I am obsessed with the game Stardew Valley. If you've never played Stardew Valley, it's incredibly accessible. Like, if you're video game curious whatsoever, I highly would recommend Stardew Valley. I promise not to talk too much about Stardew Valley, but it's like a farming simulation game, which I know sounds incredibly boring. Like, for years I would hear people talk about this game and I'm like, I don't want to like pretend to farm on a video game. That sounds so boring. What are you talking about? I remember Farmville back in the day. I'm that old, right? All over Facebook, like, had no interest in any of it, but I'm telling you, Stardew Valley is incredible. But I'm trying really hard not to like start speaking in Stardew Valley terms on this podcast. I just had to let you know that. Also, if you like Stardew Valley, Or if you try it because of this podcast, please send me a message and let me know so we can nerd out. And I want to know who you marry. I want to know all the things if there are any other Stardew Valley fans out there. It is the most calming, peaceful, chill game. Whenever I'm having stressful times in my life, I pretty much always end my night playing a little bit of Stardew Valley, and it like keeps me sane. So, okay, that's it. I promise I'm done talking about Stardew Valley now. And this is not a sponsored, not a sponsored post. I'm just a fan. But anyway, some of your crops will be ready within a few weeks. Some of your crops will take a few months. Some, aren't there those crazy flowers that bloom like once every 7 years or something? Like, every different type of plant has a different life cycle and how long it's going to take. And during that time, you need to continue nurturing it. And nurturing with the plant is, making sure that it has adequate sunlight, making sure it's getting water, making sure you're clearing out any invasive weeds or, predatory bugs, anything like that. When it comes to people that you've planted seeds with, continuing to nurture looks like continuing to show up consistently for your business. If you planted a seed with them, but then you're not consistent in your marketing and your online presence, they're probably not going to order from you when they're ready. They're going to find someone that is consistent. It can look like building that relationship with that person. And this does not mean being in their messenger all the time, being really annoying and like trying to awkwardly be their new best friend, hoping that they'll buy. Like, I am not about that fake relationship life, but genuinely getting to know someone, engaging with their stuff in a normal human way over time and letting that relationship build the way that it will build, because it's a little bit different with everyone what specifically they need. Just like, some plants need a lot of water, some plants really don't need a lot of water. People are the same way. So what you'll need to do to nurture them and how long you're going to have to nurture them before they bloom, right? Before they're ready to be harvested, which is when they finally order, that's going to vary a lot. It just depends on the person. So what you need to be doing in order to always have a harvest ready, and I know I feel so silly saying harvest, but when I say harvest, I mean someone who's ready to place an order. And that can be a new customer, that can be a recurring customer, right? There's certain plants that grow once and keep producing fruit or vegetables or flowers or whatever. So, but when I say harvest, I specifically mean someone who's ready to place an order. So most of us with our business, we want a consistent harvest. We want orders every month, every week, every day, depending on what that looks like for you, what your goal is, what you're hoping to have happen right now. But we always want people ready to order. And so in order to have that happen, you need to be consistently planting new seeds. If you are always planting seeds, you're pretty much always going, maybe not in the beginning, right? While you're in the nurturing process, but once you get this going, if you continue to always be planting new seeds, you're pretty much always going to have someone who's ready to harvest. And this is the part that I really want you to understand, because so many people come to me and say, well, I'm frustrated and I'm trying, but I feel like it's so out of my control because I don't get to decide when other people are ready to order. And you're 100% right. You should never try and push someone into ordering when they aren't ready. That is not a good business practice. That's not going to turn them into a long-term customer, raving fan, person who sends you referrals, right? I completely agree that you should respect people's timelines and let them buy when they're ready to buy. But what I think is a mistake about this mentality is thinking that you don't have any control over who's in your pipeline. Yes, you can't decide when someone's ready to say yes, but you are in control of how many seeds you're planting. So if you are not getting the harvest that you want, instead of complaining that people aren't ordering and complaining about the economy and complaining about whatever it may be, how about you plant some more seeds? That is the part that you are in control of. And ultimately, that's going to have the highest success rate to make sure that you always have a harvest ready. You can pick one person and focus on them and say, this person's going to order. I know they are. And you can continue to fixate on them. And maybe they'll order. Maybe they'll be your number one customer. You never know. But sometimes life happens. There are people who have been telling me for years now, I really want to buy that thing. I really want to do that challenge. Oh, it just didn't work out. Maybe next time. Oh yeah, this one didn't work out again. Maybe next time. And I'm not saying this to shame them, just to illustrate to you that you cannot latch onto someone who says they're interested and assume that they're definitely going to order and that they're going to do it on the timeline that is convenient for you. That will set you up for frustration and failure and a large drought season, right? A large season where you have absolutely nothing ready to harvest and you're just out there fixated on this one little plant that clearly isn't ready, clearly isn't thriving, but you're trying, you're singing to it, you're talking to it, you're pouring water on it, and it's just not producing fruit. And instead, you could just be planting like 200 more seeds, and the odds of one of them being ready to order is very high, right? Like a lot of times we get fixated on our handful of leads. So let me walk you through what tends to happen. And this is what happened to me very early on and what I see happening with a lot of businesses. So when you first get started, the farming analogy doesn't work as well in the beginning, because when you first get started, you're working through your warm market. And that part looks a little bit different for everyone. Some people have an incredible warm market, a huge network of very supportive people. The thing you start selling is of great interest to them, and you have a ton of customers right out of the gate from your warm market, and maybe it even lasts for a long time. Some people can make it 6 months, a year, or more just on their warm market, depending on what that looks like. Some people have a bit of support in the beginning, and then it sort of falls off. And some people really just get nothing from their warm market. And it's not really anything that you're doing wrong. It's not really within your control very much. Just know that it's going to look a little bit different for everyone. And so if you're someone who had a really great warm market, awesome, and be grateful for that. If you're someone who didn't, it's okay. Everyone's warm market dries up eventually. You really cannot sustain a long-term business on just your family and friends. Everyone has to branch out of their warm market eventually. And I honestly think I understand why you might be frustrated and wish that you had the warm market support that you might see other people having. But I can tell you that sometimes the people who have that warm market support really struggle to branch out into their cold market. It's almost like I think I've talked about this a few times on this podcast, but in high school, I didn't really have to study much. I didn't have to work that. I mean, I was a hard worker. I got all my work done on time. But I made straight A's, and it wasn't that difficult for me. And then I got to college, and all of a sudden I had to study, and I never learned how to study. It was really hard for me. Whereas the people who struggled in high school, they had already expected to struggle. They had learned some of those study habits. They had learned some of that discipline. Like, it hit me like a ton of bricks because I had never had to learn that before. And so it's kind of the same thing where if you have a very supportive warm market and then all of a sudden it dries up, sometimes that hits people much harder. Sometimes if in the beginning you're like, well, my friends and family aren't interested, that's okay. I'm going to have to figure out a different way. It can be a good thing. Whereas someone who has a year that's great and then their warm market dries up and they go, what the heck happened? And then they want to quit their business because they're like, I don't understand. Like, no one's interested anymore. Nothing's working. But really, you just haven't been planting those new seeds. You planted all those seeds in the beginning with all the people that already knew you. And then they sprouted at various times, right? Depending on what type of plant they were for purposes of this analogy. You got that harvest, and some of them will probably continue ordering and some won't. And now you're out of people to talk to because you have not been planting more seeds. It's the same thing. I mean, and the same thing happens in Stardew Valley, right? Some crops grow in 4 days, some take 2 weeks. And the 4-day crops, once you harvest them, if you don't plant more seeds, it's just an empty spot in your field. And you start making less and less money until eventually all the seeds that you planted, like the game rolls over into new seasons and you get new crops that you can plant. So let's say at the beginning of spring, you plant a bunch of crops, but then slowly they're ready to harvest. And if you aren't planting new seeds, then eventually you wake up each day and there's nothing ready to harvest because you have not planted more seeds. Your business is that exact same way. So if you are saying, man, I don't have a harvest, like I really want some customers and I do not seem to have a harvest, what's going on? Well, we need to back up and say, how many seeds have you been planting? Have you just been posting the same things in the same places to the same people that you've been talking to this whole time and wondering why new crops aren't miraculously sprouting? And I'm not saying like you might have some people in your current audience that are that crazy plant that like smells like a corpse and burns or blooms every 7 years. You might have a few of those. I'm not saying that there aren't people in your current audience that won't order in the future. Sometimes their life situation changes and now they're interested when they didn't need it before. I'm not saying that won't happen, but there's no guarantee that will happen or when that will happen. And so if that's where you're at right now, you've got no seeds planted in your fields and you're just sitting around hoping that people are going to show up ready to order, that's probably why your business feels really frustrating and it probably feels really out of your control. And I don't know about you, but for me, that's like the fast track to overwhelm is when I don't feel in control of my situation. I really like to be in control of things. And obviously that's been something I had to make peace with as an entrepreneur. But it's really hard for me when my business feels so out of my control. And so if you've been feeling that way and overwhelmed and discouraged and like, I just don't know what I can do, I feel like it's out of my control and I'm just waiting for when people are ready to order again, then that is when I want you to really consider, am I planting the right amount of seeds? So what you need to really be focused on is making sure that you are continually planting new seeds, because what happens a lot of times is we go through these cycles. So, like I said, we start with our worm market. We harvest all those seeds, and then most people experience like a steep decline. It might happen more gradually for you, but a lot of people start out strong, excited, people are interested, questions are coming in, and then for some people it's a few weeks, for some people a few months, for some people a year or more. It just depends. You inevitably hit that point where you realize you're not having a lot of people who are interested anymore, and you're saying, uh-oh, what do I do now? I don't have anyone. And that's because you haven't been planting those new seeds. Then you say, oh crap, I got to get some new leads. Like, I got to get my butt in gear. I got to network. And so you go on this like networking rampage and you start adding all these new people and connecting with new people and planting these seeds. And then after a few weeks to a few months of doing that, you start to have some people who are ready to buy again, right? Some things are coming ready to harvest. And so you say, awesome, it's working. And then you completely stop planting seeds and you shift over to harvest mode and you say, awesome, I'm going to kick my feet up. I got momentum back. This is great. Now I'm going to wait for all these new people I connected with to be ready to order and things will be great. Well, what do you think is going to inevitably happen, right? Because remember, now you're not planting new seeds. So we're going to harvest. And some of your crops won't make it. Like, not everyone that you plant a seed with is going to buy. That's never realistic to assume that. And now you're out, you don't have a harvest again, right? Nothing is sprouting and you're sitting here going, crap, what happened? And then you say, oh, I really got to get my butt in gear. And you start networking again, meeting new people, planting those seeds, and repeat, right? And it feels very like planting season and harvesting season. Planting season, harvesting season. And this causes your business to feel very up and down. And it probably also causes you to feel kind of stressed out and like your business is really unpredictable. And also probably like it's really hard, because when we get in those seasons where there's nothing ready to harvest and you're stressed, and then you go on the networking rampage, that can be exhausting and really burn you out because you're freaking out trying to right the ship again. And then you decide, oh, people are ready. Now I'm going to coast some more, and then repeat, right? And you're constantly freaking out and then trying to calm yourself, recover from that so that you don't get fully burnt out. And then it's like back and forth, and you're never just like content and happy with your business. You're always panicked and either like, yay, life is good, or oh, everything is awful and it's terrible and I got to meet new, like you're always up and down. And what I would love for you instead is to shift out of those cycles and instead decide that you're always in a planting season. You are always planting new seeds. If you make connecting with new people and planting those new seeds the number one focus of your business, everything would change. Okay, that's dramatic. I mean, it depends where your business is at. But for a lot of you listening to this, it is not extreme for me to say everything about your business would change. I have been screaming into the void for years. You guys need to grow your network. You have to focus on networking. You need to grow your audience. And I'm hoping that this analogy will help you understand why a little bit more. If you are not continually meeting new people, you are not going to continually have sales. You just aren't. That is the reality of business. Okay. So if you stop getting into these cycles of, oh crap, I got to plant, and then, okay, it's time to harvest. This is great. Oh crap, I got to plant. Okay, it's time to harvest. This is great. And instead you just adopt the mindset of, I want to always be planting seeds because I want to always have people who are ready, then you will feel a lot more just even, I guess, in your mood for the most part. And when it comes to your business, at least, I can't speak to your mood in general, but you will not feel like either elated or deflated. You can kind of like ride in the middle, right? Just feel good about your business, feel calm and peaceful instead of overwhelmed and stressed and panicked about your business all the time. And you'll be moving towards the results that you want to get in a way that feels calm and peaceful instead of panicked and stressed all the time. So anyway, I hope that this is maybe clicking a little bit for you, so that we can get you out of those cycles. The other thing is that you're going to have happier customers in my experience, and just feel better about the way that you conduct yourself in your business. Now, you may or may not relate to this. I might be like blowing myself up here, but I will just be honest with you and say, when I only have a small handful of leads, and I did this a lot in the beginning, where people would say to me, oh yeah, I'm so interested, I want to get that, or I just have to wait until next week, or whatever, basically anything other than placing an order on the spot. I would get in my head like, okay, this person said that. If I had goals for the month, I was in network marketing at the time. And so, a lot of times they'll say everyone who gets 3 customers this month gets XYZ or whatever. So I would write out my list and say, well, Susie said she wanted to order. So did Cindy. And so did Kathy. And then I would just think I was good and put my feet up and say, well, they're going to order. I'm going to be fine. I'm going to hit this bonus. Guess what? None of them ordered. Or maybe one did or two did. You just never know. But my point with this is when you have a very small number of leads and you have goals that depend on those sales, a lot of times you get a little bit weird. You get very fixated on those people. You can come on too strong, maybe accidentally seem more aggressive than you mean to, or you get very emotionally invested in this person ordering. And then when they don't, it feels like a personal attack, or it feels like your world is spiraling, or it becomes this like very dramatic thing. Or maybe the way that you respond in the moment is not something that you feel good about long term. So let's say you're in a situation like I just described. You're one customer away from earning something, and this person has been telling you all month long they're going to order, and so you thought you had it in the bag because this person's going to order, and now it's the last day of the month and they're not responding, or they're saying, well, actually, I don't know, or maybe they say something to you like, well, we had a situation come up, or my husband's sick and he didn't work this week, so I don't know if I should spend the money. And now you're in a situation where you worked hard and you thought you had this goal in the bag, and I think I can honestly say that I don't think I've ever said anything that I majorly regret in the moment, but I have had situations like this where someone says something and it just completely feels like a punch to the stomach. And sometimes you can respond in a way that you don't feel the most proud of in the long term, or you try and convince them to order anyway because it suits your goals, and you're panicking and it's the end of the month and you don't have time to find someone else. And so you're like, I just need this to still happen. When if instead you had been planting a ton of seeds and you knew that there were multiple people, or, you had already long met that goal, and that person comes to you and says, hey, I know I said I was going to order and I do still want to, but my husband's really sick and I just don't think this month is going to work out. Instead of you panicking and saying, oh no, this ruins everything, and you saying, are you sure? What if you can instead say, I 100% understand. Take care of your husband. I hope you all feel better. It'll still be here next month. And you can feel really good about that in the long term. But when you have such a small number of leads, you put a ton of pressure on them to come through and do what you need them to do. And sometimes you can respond in an emotional way that isn't the way that you would want to respond if there was nothing on the line, or you could take the emotion out of it. So that's another reason. I just wanted to mention that quickly at the end here, because I think it's worth saying, especially if you found yourself in those situations, to make sure that you're always planting those seeds. So anyway, to recap why your business is like farming. Hopefully you're going to go play Stardew Valley now, or hopefully if nothing else, this has given you kind of one of those light bulb moments where you're like, oh, you're right. I am not continually planting seeds. I am not like, if you are not continually connecting with new people every month, ideally every week or every day, but at least every month. And I don't mean one new person a month. Well, it depends what your business goals are. I'm not here to try and like shame you into having bigger goals. I hate when coaches try and say like, oh, your goals aren't big enough, or it needs to, that's not enough. I want you to want what you want. But if your goals are to have consistent sales and you're meeting one new person a month, that's not going to cut it. I just have to be honest with you, right? I'd be a terrible coach if I was not upfront with you about that. So you must be continuously meeting new people and planting those new seeds with them if you want to always have a harvest ready. So I hope that this has helped you to say, oh, that's where I'm going wrong, so that we can right this ship. Because like I said, it's not fun to, when you have a business and you feel like you're working really hard and nothing's coming out of what it is that you're doing. And there's reasons why this can happen. And to an extent, that's just a normal part of business. In the early stages of business, and don't confuse this with timing. It can be timing related, but to me, the stages of business are more related to your growth and success and kind of like what's happening in your business. So you could be a kind of a beginner early stages of business, but you're 4 years in, or you could be 2 months in and be more advanced. It just depends, I think, on where your business is at. I don't think like amount of time matters as much as what have you accomplished, what work have you put in, where are your skills, how are you growing, those kind of things. But anyway, I think that early on, You will put in a lot of work and not see the rewards, and it can feel frustrating. But as you keep going, you should start to feel like that's changing a little bit. You should start to feel like over time, it's less work to make a sale because everything that you're doing is compounding. The way you're building your brand, the way you're building your audience, the way your reputation is growing. All of these things are coming together to where making sales should start to feel easier over time. And if it's not, my first guess of what's probably going on is that you're simply not planting enough seeds. And I felt this in my own business. I don't have as much time to network in the way that I used to these days. And I started to feel that in my numbers. And so I've had to really figure out, what can I do to put more emphasis on networking? What are the things that I can try to make sure that I am planting enough seeds to get the results that I want? And that's always my first troubleshoot. Well, I shouldn't say always first, but almost always first. If I'm feeling that frustration, especially right now, right? We're rolling into the summer during a year when the economy feels a bit uncertain. Sales are down across the board for a lot of people right now. And it can be really easy to just throw your arms up and say, you know what? There's not much I can do. It's out of my hands. I'm frustrated, but I don't know what to do. And my perspective instead would be, okay, I cannot determine who's ready to buy, and the nurture process might take a little bit longer than normal right now, but what is within my control is how many seeds I'm planting. And that is what I want to be focused on. Because first of all, it's the single best thing to focus on to make a difference. Like, if there's one thing that I could have you do that could have, like, one change that you could make that could make the biggest difference in the results you're getting, it would be increasing the number of new leads that are coming into your business. Yes, you can work on your posts. Yes, you can have a new direction for your group. Yes, you can start a new, like, there's all these things that you can do. But at the end of the day, if not enough new leads are coming into your business and new seeds are not being planted, none of that other stuff matters. So, okay, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this. I don't really feel like I have an action step for you this week, other than I would say your action step is to let me know if this helped you or to go play Stardew Valley. But that's that's not really your action step. I know not everyone is a video game person, but I hope that this has really given you that perspective shift that you needed. And I hope I see you out there in your cute farming overalls and straw hat planting more seeds. I hope this episode inspires you to go take action on something you have been overthinking. As much as I wish you could, you cannot think your way to success, so promise me you're going to go take some action today. Head over to overthinkingentrepreneur.com to find all the cool stuff I've made for you over the years, like my free guide to getting more social media engagement and my Facebook group, Dynamite Entrepreneurs, which has a free course on social media basics.